Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Vail. I am currently located in Utah, but I grew up in the Bay Area, and that connection has definitely served me well. I still love all my friends in California, or all the friendships that I created in California, including Hillary. So Hillary was the one to really help me get into this business of biotech. And just a brief thing about me, I went to Chico State and I got my bachelor's, and I have been always in the medical field and started off with hospital experience, went to clinical, and then eventually found myself in biotech, and I love it because it's very much about the other side of medicine, not just the patient facing, but more so about what goes on behind the scenes before the medications get on the market for patients. So I'm going to do a mini presentation today just about one of the projects for the company that I currently work with called Ultragenics. One of the reasons why I love it so much is because we do have that ability to be super versatile in our positions. And so I'm going to share some of that knowledge that I gained when I did this project. So yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. Oh, it says that the host disabled. Give me a second. Okay, here we go. Okay, so yes, so in this presentation, you will hear like a very key word oftentimes, and the key word is CAPA. So I want to give you all who are not as, don't know this word as well. CAPA is what stands for corrective and preventative action. Basically what a CAPA is it's a systematic approach that includes actions needed to be corrected, or the correction part of the CAPA. Also, you have to work on the preventative recurrence. So that's the corrective action portion. And then you also try to eliminate the cause of a potential non-compliance product and other quality problems. So that's the preventative. So yeah, let me show you just what this model looks like. So when you have, this is basically for biotech talk, but if you do have in general any type of process, or especially in a business, you do want to have things really kind of reevaluate your systems. How are you doing things? If there is a chance where you happen to come across something that goes wrong and it seems like it's a big, needs to be escalated super quickly, you always try not to have those occurrences happen. But this is a way that this system, or this model that you see here, is a way for us to continually look at our processes internally in a company and say, okay, this is how we do things. Maybe we need to go back and evaluate it, see how, whether it's good or not. Not everything is foolproof, but, there are a lot of things that we could possibly do to make things better. And then you move on to, if there is something that escalates, but it may not be, terribly huge, you still should take the time to investigate further. And so this process is very tedious, but is also, I feel like, very rewarding, because you get to, in the end, hopefully find out, okay, this is what the root cause is, and this is what I'm going to prevent for the future, and this is how I can't have it happen again. So we will be looking at these individual little squares here on the different stages, and be able to see what you do in a broad general view for this whole diagram. So when I did this presentation, we went through a whole training on what CAPA was and all of these different stages. Very detailed, very long training. But then as a company, they wanted us to divide up into groups and basically take on this challenge and figure out something within our own daily processes that we think we could kind of used as a model. So my group and I, for ours, we first went to the drawing board and started looking at all these different phases. The first one is the evaluation phase. So we thought of things that were really kind of on our minds currently in our daily processes that we thought, well, maybe that's something we can improve on. And being from records management and dealing with documents, I also had a coworker that was on that same group as I, and so we kind of had more of a say. And we thought, well, we have somebody from, IT side for Viva, we had somebody from training side, and we thought, well, what if we were to do something that involved documents, because it kind of affects in some way everybody who's a part of the group. And so we went through collaboration and we finally decided to go with quality issues. So when we deal with documents, if we see that there's something wrong with them, we issue what's called a quality issue in the Viva system. So this next slide, you will see, sorry, this is on the okay. So with this first phase of the evaluate phase, we identify the issue, and we use our metrics, and we use basically the facts that are in front of us. As we looked at our metrics for how good our documents are looking in our Viva Vault, we realized that there was a time when it seemed like the number of quality issues that we issued for documents was a relatively good balance. It wasn't too heavy with the quality issues. But then at a certain point, we realized, how in the world did our quality issues get so out of control? When we were looking at our documents, we had tons of documents that were in QC rejected status because they all had quality issues to them. So it was getting in the way of our daily work. It was getting in the way of how we realized it was taking up training time out of our time to do the extra mile of training and retraining. And it just seemed like over time, our quality issues were not improving in number, but they were getting worse. So we went to the details of the problem, and we went to the metrics first and said, okay, it looks like starting in December of 2021 was really where the issue started to arise. So we did a brief, evaluation of the problem, and we came up with this. So we said that the percentage number of documents uploaded into Ultragenyx eTMF with quality issues has increased to 41% since December of 2021, when previously numbers have been between 15 to 27%. So that was huge. To have the number of quality issues go up to 41%, it obviously would affect our job. So we then went to the next step of this evaluation phase, and we said, what is wrong with that? So records management, we spoke up and we said that we had to redistribute responsibilities to handle the increased amount of quality issues, and that it really was affecting our day-to-day job. When did it happen? It started in December of 2021, and we were able to get that information from our Viva Vault. And then to what extent is the non-compliance? So this part was the part where we realized, it isn't technically a huge non-compliance, but it is enough to affect us to the point where we got to do something about it. So we said 23% was how much the percentage was of quality issues in November, and then started in December and increased to 41%. And then who recognized it, who saw it? It was records management. Going on to this same evaluation phase, we went to risk management. And this is where you really look at the issue kind of on this scale. As you can see, you have the frequency, which is on the left-hand side of this table. And as you increase in frequency, if it doesn't affect your job that much, it's probably going to be in the green. But as you have it reoccur more and more on a daily occurrence, then obviously it would be considered a higher risk. And then on the other side of the table, you would look at the impact. How much does it really impact the non-compliance? And because we had people from different you know, representing different functions. For records management, we felt like, yes, this is huge. It's affecting us. We're going to have to rearrange, you know, the number of people to help out, to help close out these quality issues and gain more support and momentum for our uploaders to correct their actions. So for us, we kind of differed. But if you ask, you know, IT, it doesn't really affect them that much, or training. Yes, they have to train, but in the end, they're not the ones to go back and retrain if something goes wrong. It's records management. So that is where we concluded, was that it was not technically a non-compliance, but it was frequent enough for us to recognize it kind of in the yellow. Then you look at the impact. What does it mean? You know, does it impact all of the documents? Does it impact just a little portion of the documents? Or are all the studies affected, or is it just a few studies that stand out? And we realized it's all documents that are contained in our Viva Vault. And not only that, but it affects all the studies. So all the studies were having issues with their quality issues, not just a particular study. I also want to mention too that we work with external organizations known as CROs. And so we often have external people outside of Ultragenyx who are doing a lot of the uploading. So, you know, we always have from records management our own thoughts and pieces as to what exactly who the person is to make the most mistakes. But we had to just kind of put that aside while we were doing this process to really see if there was something else that records management just wasn't seeing on our own. Sorry, there's something going on with this slide, but step one of the second portion, the yellow portion now, is going to be the investigation portion. So our goal is to come up with a non-compliance statement. And the way to do so is you look at kind of the W's at the bottom, the investigation. So what's the issue? Where is it occurring? When did it occur? Who does it affect? Or who is the main person that it affects? And how big is the non-compliance? So when we investigated, we actually went to step 2 first to look and answer all these questions. So what was affected? It was the number of QIs that were increasing, where it's in our Viva Vault to eTMF. When did it occur? December 2021 until when we started this presentation back in the spring of last year. And then who was kind of the person or the people, groups of people that could possibly be the reason for all this? We said the uploaders in general. And then how big of a non-compliance? So we said it affects all documents and all studies. We then went back to our non-compliance statement and came up with this. So we said the percentage was basically increased, and that it previously was at a lower stage between 15 to 27%. The next step is probably one of my favorites. They have different diagrams that you can do to really look at a more granular view. It's like peeling an onion to see exactly what could contribute to this issue. So the issue that we are trying to work on is in this box right here, and it's the percentage of QIs have increased since December 2021. And so we were looking at this diagram called a fishbone. It's a really fun one to look at because you take the different possibilities of what the root cause was based on different aspects. So we looked at the people aspect. Okay, so why did the number of QIs increase as part of a people problem? What could the people have done, or the uploaders in this instance have done to cause the QIs to go up higher? And so we said that they didn't have the TMF plan or the business rules. Those are our resources that we tell everybody when they upload to refer to. When we went to see that a lot of people were making the same mistakes, when we met with them, we would always start off saying, what resources are you using when you upload? Do you use our TMF map? Do you know what the business rules for uploading are? A lot of them surprisingly would say, what's the map? What are the business rules? And so we thought, wow, if they don't even know what the proper resources are, then yeah, I can't really blame them for making the same mistake. Another thing too was that they, sorry, it's really hard to read. They didn't know to refer to the resources. So that's kind of the same thing. We looked at the system standpoint and we thought maybe the system didn't, they have basically a requirement for when you upload a document, you have to answer and put in information. And sometimes with quality issues, when you enter in a quality issue, you have different categories that you can put the quality issue under. And that helps us in our metrics to see exactly why we're issuing all these quality issues. And one of the ones that was really high at the time was missing metadata. And so when you upload a document, if the document field is not required, then sometimes they would just leave it blank. They didn't know that they had to fill it out, and therefore it was left blank. And then we would get the review of the document and we'd say, well, the metadata is not there. So that was also maybe a system error, that not everything that we look for is technically preventing them from moving the document forward. So that could possibly be a system error. The next thing was environment. So we were looking at basically, how everybody was working, and we looked to see if they were possibly confused on some things. So I see here that you have an environment where you have uploaders, as I mentioned before, who are internally uploaders within our own company of Ultragenics, and then you would have uploaders that were coming in from the CROs or from other companies that are hired outside. So when you have that, sometimes you just happen to have more confusion. Not everybody receives the same training or the same access, so it's very different. Which leads me to the method. So what, as far as method terms, could go wrong? And we said method-wise, there's a lack of clarity of when to use our resources, the TMF map, and the business rules for uploading. And then the last one is document. Sometimes the documents weren't even read, weren't even distributed. So if the document's not there, how can you know to refer it? So the point of the fishbone, like I said, is to break things down by categories, really see on a granular view what could possibly be the root cause. And then from there, you identify one of these fishbones right here, and you think you do a further investigation, more in depth. So with this fishbone, we decided to go with our method, and we stated that the lack of clarity of how to utilize the resources was really the real root cause of what we thought was the reason for these quality issues being so high. So when you find a root cause or a possible root cause, the last step in the investigative portion is to then ask why. And there are 5 whys. So we said, that they have a lack of clarity to utilize the resources, the uploaders do. And so we asked, well, why does that happen? And then we answered and said, well, maybe because they're not aware of the resources. So they can't know what to do if they're not even told, where the resources are or even how to use them. Well, why would that happen? And then we dug deeper and we said, they didn't pay attention to the communication and the training. So when we have people externally uploading and gaining access to our Viva, we found that their training was different than people who are internal. And the main thing that was wrong with that was that sometimes they would just look at modules and they would just go through the modules, not really read the information. They had a video recording. They didn't have a live interaction face to face with somebody to help them. And so we felt like, well, maybe it's the training. Well, why would that happen? Or, yes, why would that happen? And then we went further and said, well, they didn't understand that they needed to adhere to the business processes. Well, why did that happen? Because when you have a CRO, you have basically people that are going into multiple systems. So when you in a biotech industry have a CRO, they basically are the ones to help support other sponsors to upload documents and get things done. So unfortunately, with the CROs, they can manage different sponsors' documents. So you may have, our company Ultragenics, and then you may also be going over to Pfizer. You may also be going to Johnson & Johnson Vault. You may be going to, who knows, 5, 6 different systems on your day-to-day job. And so that's kind of what we concluded to, is that when you have a big company or a big CRO, that's kind of just how it is that they are in and out of different systems and different business systems all at once. So they can't really hone in on our company and say, yes, I know all the ins and outs of Ultragenics, and I know all the ins and outs of this other company, to the point of, what we as internally know, because we only work on our system. So in general, the CROs were kind of the big issue. When it comes to the last phase, the implementation, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there are multiple steps. Basically, once you find out the root cause, it's not good enough to say, okay, I found the root cause and I'm going to walk away. I know what it is. We're just going to hope and pray that it's not going to happen again. No, you got to put your effort into action. So now's the time to act and figure out, okay, what can we do in the future? What can we do going forward? And how can we prevent this in the future from happening? That's the main goal. So the implementation, we did, as I said, have people from different departments, and we had a representative from training who was also in this group, and it was really interesting to hear her perspective. What she basically said was that maybe we should require all the uploaders, or what we call TCOs for short. Maybe we should require them to take and pass a training module each year that they have to renew access into our Viva Vault. So when you're an external user, you are given just an annual access to our Viva Vault. But then when that year is up, you basically just automatically get another ticket in our system, and then you can go ahead and just continue your access. So there was no retraining that had to be done. So that was her thought. When we had somebody from systems or IT who was really, good with Viva Vault, they said, why don't they work with training, and maybe they can get a link on a help page. So when you're in Viva Vault, if you need help, there's a link that you can go to, and it lists resources. So they thought, well, maybe we can be more specific in our resources that we provide the uploaders. Maybe we can also customize our emails. So when you get a quality issue in Viva, you get a notification through an email. And maybe they thought we need to change the wording to be very specific on how to properly close out QIs, how to prevent QIs. Maybe that's something we can do in the future. From our department, records management, we went about it in thinking, maybe there needs to be a basic universal, goes to everybody who gets access to Viva, communication introducing our resources to begin with. That was one that we felt very strongly about, because we wanted to have everybody get the same opportunity to be exposed to these resources and have it come from us. So this is still in conversation. We work with training to try to really make sure that people are getting the correct information when they get access to our Viva Vault. But sometimes, it's a little hard in a gray area, because as records management, we really are the experts of this system, and we really want to be the ones to train people. However, training, obviously, they're hired to train people in multiple systems and do multiple things within the company. And so it's kind of been an internal struggle sometimes with training to say, hey, I get and I appreciate that you're training, but can we just take over additional training for anybody who gets into Viva Vault, because we're the ones to deal with, you know, the consequences if they don't get the proper training. So that's something that's still kind of in conversation right now. And then the last thing is the contracts. When we went to look at the contracts between these uploaders who are CRO affiliated, we realized that there was no wording to say specifically in the legal binding contract when we hired them that they have to meet a certain requirement for quality uploads. So that was a big hole right there that we thought, we need to further investigate in the contracts, see what's missing, put our own language in it and our own expectations, but also say an escalation process if they don't meet our requirement standards. So that's basically it. It was a really, like I said, tedious process. We kind of just did a blanket overview and really realized that there's still more conversation that needs to be had, still more action that needs to be done. And there's still things that we really want to improve on with our systems. So yeah, that's basically it. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alicia. And I think this is great. I was hoping you'd do a TMF example, but you know, when I've done this training, it has been non-TMF. So I think that is really helpful for a lot of our TMF users. But also this is very applicable to like life in general. Like you just you don't want to just solve a problem. You want to really figure out what's the root cause. Like, and I like to think of it as like being kind of an annoying little toddler, like why? You know, like you're supposed to do like 5 whys, and it's like kind of annoying, but it really gets you to like the root, like you know, actual cause of what's going on. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this for us. And if anyone else has other topics that they want to learn about and or present on, we are all ears, and I want to get a variety of topics coming through here for Power of Work. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Alicia.